Chairman Wyckoff.
Yolan, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks. Here. Commissioner Noble.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly.
Here.
Commissioner Marr.
Here.
Commissioner Dillon.
Here.
Commissioner LaRue.
Here.
Thank you.
Looks like we have a full house. Thank you, everyone. Before we start the public comment, I want to give a quick update on the agenda. We have 2 agenda items that have been rescheduled for next month. So if you're here for those, I don't want you to be disappointed, but I also don't want you to stick around and wait while we do what we're doing. So the ordinances related to the Johns Pass Village Activity Center Plan, items 2023-01 and 02 will be rescheduled until November 28th, right?
That's correct.
Okay. But what does that mean? But we had to give proper notice for the meeting, and then it had to be rescheduled, and we'll have a hearing, a meeting just like this on the 28th.
Right, but what does recreation activity mean? There was no explanation.
I don't think we can actually bring up the agenda topic.
Correct.
Because we have to renotice the meeting and everything else, so we can't discuss it here.
The agenda packet is on the website. You can get the whole agenda packet. It's going to be a big, thick thing like this that's going to explain what the ordinance proposals are, so you can read it and see what it's about.
When's that going to be posted?
The meeting is November 28th at 6 p.m.
I mean, you're not going to post the packet until the day of the agenda?
We posted about at least a week in advance, mostly 10 days, usually 10 days in advance.
So we'll have a little idea.
And the report's actually online on our website right now.
Oh, it is already?
Yes.
Didn't quite find it. All I found was the basics. And I've heard nothing more.
If you write down your email, I can send you the link.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out again, and if I have trouble, I'll give it.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll rope it back in here. So now time for public comment. The public participation is encouraged. If you're addressing the Planning Commission, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes. Please do not discuss anything that is already on the agenda for this evening. If it is on the agenda, we'd like to have your commentary at that time. So now we'll open up to public commentary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Jim Rostech, 480 137th Avenue Circle. Good evening, everybody. I'm here concerning the ordinance changes of 2022, 29, and 30 that you've already voted on. I understand that this may be going back to a future workshop, but I don't have a confirmation of that just yet. However, what you don't know is the city failed to inform the Planning Commission of the whole story, instead presenting a one-sided narrative to fit possibly an agenda. I really don't know. The rest of the story is that the city failed to mention is the proposed changes of this are all a result of complaints against one property, and that's the property at 13625 Gulf Boulevard. And there's numerous complaints there. And instead of the city acting on those complaints, which are legitimate complaints, they've chosen a path of we're going to coddle this singular business and allow multiple illegal structures to remain on said property by changing the C4 zoning codes. Yes, some of the changes may minutely affect some of the other properties, but make no mistake about it that these changes are promulgated because of the complaints that were put in. Additionally, the city did these changes without soliciting any citizen input. The citizens had to engage with the commissioner to strong-arm the city manager into a meeting about this, that we wanted an input. We couldn't, the city manager told us to attend the town hall meeting. I said, well, the problem with that was we would take over the meeting because I needed 2 to 3 hours to explain what was going on from nuts and bolts from A to Z. So the meeting did take place on 10/31. We did have 12 residents attend on short notice, and the property values of these residents exceed $15 million, and each of those pay an average of $10K a year in property tax. But like I said earlier, I'm now being told that these proposed changes are going back to a future workshop, so we'll see. The one business in question is located at 13625 Gulf Boulevard. They have been cited by the county and state for various violations, of which I have in these packets all of the government documents of all of the citations, and there's thumb drives in here, and unfortunately, I could only get 6 of the thumb drives copied with all of the files and all of the strange things that have been going on. Not sure why the city chose this approach that they've used, but there's common ground that we can all meet on. But when you just have the city and the business and no citizen input, well then, yes, things are going to be jaded, and the citizens want input because we are directly affected every day by about what's going on. Can we please play video number 1 with audio?
Yep, I'll call your comments soon, and we'll take a look at this video for the 1 minute. And
Thank you kindly.
yes,
Sir, your name?
Jim Rostek.
Jim Rostek, 480 137th Avenue Circle. This is what we face every day. This is one of the fishermen, I'm assuming drug overdose, whatever, puking overboard right in front of my wife while she's having coffee on our deck. Something is happening over there every day. This was just this past week.
I think we can stop that.
Yes.
We got the point. Thank you. All right. What's our procedure? Should we take, I mean, I know we get emails and correspondence. Is this something we should be taking?
I think it's a question for Linda, because I don't know the
Yeah,
process
is
for
Linda,
that.
is
Linda's
Linda
here
listening
on
from the
Zoom.
nether regions?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here from the nether region.
Hi, Linda.
Hi there.
So my question
Yes,
for
for
you is,
public-
Mr. Rostek wants to give us some material on a thumb drive. Should we
Sure,
take
we
that?
can take, yeah, the board can take information on the thumb drive. It's public comment, and it fits in to the 3 minutes that's
Okay.
generally offered. The board does not interact with people during the public comment section.
Roger.
The board can bring up items on its own agenda later if it chooses to do so.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Linda. If you want to hand them to me, I'll just distribute them. Thank you. Okay. We'll take care of those. You got it. Thank you. Any more public comment on anything not on our agenda this evening? All right. Seeing none, I will call the public comment section to be closed at this time. I will move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes from the October 17th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the September 12th meeting as presented.
Okay. We have the October meeting minutes too, right?
We had already done that, I just didn't have you sign.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Sorry. Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. No changes presented, so I'd like to call the roll for approval of the minutes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Noble?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon?
Yes.
Commissioner Marr?
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue?
Yes.
And Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Minutes are approved. Okay, so we'll hit new business as discussed earlier. Items A and B, ordinance 2023-01 and -02. The first one is Johns Pass Village Activity Center Plan. That will be rescheduled and re-advertised with our meeting date of November the 28th. Same with ordinance 2023-02, amending the future land use map to add Johns Pass Village Activity Center. So we will be addressing those topics on November 28th. Bring a comfortable chair, I predict, right? So the item
And
up,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
in order to alter your agenda, I think it would be best, especially those being important hearing items, to vote to move those.
Very
to
well.
November 28th meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Linda, for that. So I guess it is best to be clear, we would need a motion to move those two agenda items to the proposed meeting on November 28th.
I'll make a motion to move ordinance 2023-1 and 2023-2 to November 28th.
Thank you. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marr. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion about the motion? If none? Oops, sorry.
Yes, I would love to be at those. I mean, and I don't know, I talked to Sue about this, and it's just like the 21st and 28th. I'm not available because of Thanksgiving. And with it being moved to the 28th, I don't understand why it couldn't just be moved to the normal meeting on the 5th.
Okay, anyone want to
I think
address
you're
that
trying
from
to
our
get it-
city
Mr.
perspective?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, we looked at all of the options, and I can tell you, some of the issue is the hearing process that's involved in these items and how long it takes to get through that process. They have to go through review at the county for 60 days between your hearing and the city commission's first hearing on the item, and then it has to be sent up to the state, and we're under some deadlines that are established by state statute to have all of our land use plan reviews in by a certain time this year, and it all started to get very crowded, and it was layering up onto the county staff, the Forward Pinellas staff as well. So looking at the schedule, we came up with needing to have your hearing on the item by the end of November, and that's why we contacted the Planning Commission to ask which of the two dates, the 21st or the 28th, would be most convenient to find as many people as we could for the hearing. We apologize for that. We just run out of time for the hearings because we also have to do all of the other comp plan amendments.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. As it stands, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion?
You're not going to get a good turnout on those dates. Everybody's mind is on Thanksgiving, and that's not fair. I agree that it shouldn't be close to Thanksgiving, and we should give it or if it, doesn't give to the state in time, then we'll do it next year.
Appreciate that.
But this is not fair.
Appreciate your thoughts. We have a schedule that we have to adhere to, unfortunately, and we're dealing with this, not just our schedule, it's Pinellas County and the state of Florida. So at this point, it appears to be just about our only option. So we have a motion and a second. I'd like you to call the roll, please.
All right, so that was Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barr,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon,
No.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue,
Yes.
and Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we are now moving on to agenda item C, which is ordinance 2023-03, updating the capital improvement program. To our folks at the city, please.
Thank you. Each fiscal year, the city is required by Florida statutes and by its own comprehensive plan to amend its 5-year capital improvement plan, it's a CIP, and update the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan. The local planning agency, the Planning Commission, is required to review the CIP and update the capital improvements elements. The portions of the CIP that are to be reviewed are those facility improvements of $100,000 or more that affects levels of service standards adopted in the comprehensive plan. So if you go to page 7 and 8 of your packets, that is the old CIP. This was adopted last year. And on page 9 and 10 of your packet, that's the updated CIP, and that has already been approved through BOC. You can see the entire capital improvements plan, and that is on page 13 and goes to page 16 of your packets.
Okay, anyone have any questions for the city?
I do. That is what the proposal was that was accepted by the BOC before. I didn't go through all the numbers exactly, but that's what was on for the 2023 proposal.
Yes, and that was what was approved through BOC.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess I need to ask for any public comment on this agenda item as well. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to comment? If so, you have 3 minutes. I always forget that part, so thank you for indulging me. We have no public comment at this point. Any other questions for the city staff at this time about the proposed, or about the previously approved capital improvement plan? Essentially, it appears we're just another set of eyeballs looking at it to make sure nothing looks out of place. And if anyone sees nothing wrong with it and wants to proceed, we can accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023 CIP as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. LaRue. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner LaRue?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon?
Yes.
Commissioner Marr?
Yes.
Commissioner Noble?
Yes.
Chairman Wyckoff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. On to the next section, which will be old business. There being no old business at this time, we will move on to item number 7, which is our administrative and staff presentations. And we'll look forward to hearing about our Madeira Beach Comprehensive Plan presentation and conservation, coastal management, and culture and recreation portions. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
We're back. As we mentioned and is in the minutes from the last meeting, we're trying to bring you 2 elements each meeting, which is one of the reasons why we're having an extra meeting on the 28th, so that we can get this EAR done in time. Your evaluation appraisal of the comprehensive plan is not extensive because you've done so much work when we did a proportionate share development fees, the impact fees. And so we cleaned up a lot at that time. But what we didn't do is the data analysis, and the data analysis that backs up the policies and the GOPs, the goals, objectives, and policies, is old. It kind of goes back a century to 1999 or something like that. So we've gone through and cleaned that up, and that's the major change. There's no recommended changes to the policies for the coastal management element, which is the important part of your EAR. There are 2 major components that the state has addressed statutorily since the last time the comp plan was updated. The first is the peril of flood requirements that are in the coastal management element. We addressed those when we did the vulnerability assessment with the DEP grant. Since that time, the statute has, or a statute has been changed, new statute added 380.093, which actually lays out how vulnerability assessments are supposed to be conducted. The one the University of Florida did for you, pretty close. They picked some different inundation dates and things like that. And what is happening now is Pinellas County is doing a county-wide vulnerability assessment, which will include Madeira Beach and satisfy those criteria. The major components of that are the vulnerability assessment, which you guys pretty much understand, I think, from what we did, and the identification of critical assets. So the county's taking that on, and we'll look forward to cooperating with them as they move that forward. But because that statutory requirement has some implementation timing, your vulnerability assessment that we did last year, year before, is adequate to support the comprehensive plan policies that you modified to address peril of flood. So that's already in here. The major things that are changed is behind all of the goals, objectives, and policies is some strike-through underlying language for the data and analysis. And so that's the sort of major thrust of what we're looking at in terms of changes, and I don't anticipate there'll be much of a review issue with that at the state level, but we'll find out, and the county gets to look at it too, so we'll get their input as well before it's ultimately transmitted. And that 60 days the county gets is what has backed us into trying to have this extra meeting on the 28th and just move these things forward. So that's the major thrust of my presentation. We've included, as we did last month, the coastal management element, the sort of correlative elements in the Pinellas Plan for your review, and any anticipated, oh, we like what that is, you can certainly make those suggestions. And again, we're sort of doing these two at a time, but as they come together, I think we mentioned last time, there are certain synergies between the elements. And so we'll have the final full package for you supposedly January, first meeting in January. And that will be when we'll be asking you to make your recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Then we'll transmit that information, the packet, to Pinellas County for their review, and we'll also, I think, try and schedule our first workshop with the Board of Commissioners. So we're moving quickly, but because we did so much work in the past years, it's really not a whole lot, not a real heavy lift. And like I say, the coastal management element is the big one. The second element that is required by the state is the property rights element, and you already passed that as well. That was necessary to do because the state would not entertain the work you're doing at Johns Pass Village without that being adopted. The legislation that adopted that said that it must be adopted before any amendments can be made. Usually it's required to be done by the time you do the year, but because however they passed it, they wanted it done immediately. Property rights in Florida, big deal. Evaluation and appraisal. And the other thing I'll point your attention to is in the back of the packet, and that is the actual statute from the state for the peril of flood. This is the coastal management element. And the language that's been highlighted in yellow, and I don't know if my page numbers are the same as yours. Is this 88? Yeah, but I think they found that. 89, okay, yeah. So that's, mine's the same as yours then too. That's good in case you have questions. And so many communities have just adopted the verbatim language. We didn't do that. We took a little more effort in terms of looking at it because two of these requirements are already requirements. And why we would need to reiterate them in the comprehensive plan, that it doesn't make sense. You have a very nice, tight comprehensive plan. There's not a lot of extraneous language, and that's a good thing. So I would encourage you to take a look at that data and analysis, and if you have any questions about the narrative that has changed in that regard, please let me know. And any other questions you might have about this process or these elements. And I think we're going to, we pass this out? And so we've got a schedule to let you know kind of where we're going and how we're going to get there, hopefully. And so we've already done the intergovernmental and public schools element. That was a light lift. Today is conservation and coastal management and also recreation and open space. The extra meeting that we're going to do in November will be for transportation and property rights. Then your meeting in December is going to be infrastructure and capital improvements.
Okay.
And we're saving the future land use and housing for the last because that touches everything. And so you'll have had an opportunity to be familiar with all of the elements by the time we get there. And there may be, in terms of coordinating with Pinellas County, some extensive changes to that element, at least in terms of the way things are labeled. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very nice, thank you. Anybody got any questions?
Of course I do.
All right, Mr. Dillon, fire
Yes.
away.
Okay, so in terms of the yellow highlighted, that's what you're planning on implementing and adding to it?
No, it's already been added. We did a vulnerability assessment, and as part of that vulnerability assessment grant, we developed peril of flood language to put into your comprehensive plan. That's just the statutory requirement, so that if you wanted to compare it to make sure that you feel like we've implemented it well, there's that.
Okay, and then the red is what's going to be changed?
The red is what's changed in the data and analysis.
Yep.
It's either strike through, underline, but those are the changes.
Okay.
Much of that language talked about what happened in the last year or before,
Or since, yeah.
and so we've tried to update it, that it's either been implemented, take it out, or, add what is different. And that's, I think, where we talk a little bit about 380-093 and its relationship to the peril of flood.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sure.
So everybody's clear, the data analysis is what supports what is being proposed for the comprehensive plan changes, right? That's basically why there's two whole separate packages. One is for the comprehensive plan, the other is, here's why. Right?
And the maps and tables that accompany that, that's your actual data and analysis, and then the narrative explains what's involved.
Sure. Okay. All right, any action we need to take on this at this point, other than absorb it?
Q&A and further research and,
Perfect.
review for additional Q&A as we move along.
I think I had a question, but I think you already answered it. But anybody have any questions for Mr. Murphy based on the material he's presented? I know you've had time to look it over, as I have. I can't find my question, but I'll find it. Anyone else have a question?
I do have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that a lot of places, they just incorporate this verbatim.
They have.
Are there any like notable exclusions that we made into ours, or is it all kind of upgrading?
No, it's all there, and if you wanted to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can do that as well.
I mean,
There's 6 different requirements in that portion of the parallel flood
gotcha,
legislation.
okay. Yeah, I mean, we review it ourselves too and look at the forward Pinellas, right? So.
Yep.
Just asking off the top of your head, I guess, so, yeah.
Sure,
thanks.
and then we're gonna have the opportunity to review the entire package.
Right.
And then see make sure everything meshes and ties together appropriately, and that there's a lot of cross-pollination between the different subcategories. So that's gonna come in the January timeframe, right?
That's the plan. We'll see
Okay.
what Nikki says.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, all right,
And what I would encourage you to do is, get your questions sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So that we're not stuck on the January meeting when we're doing land use and, have a whole lot of things to deal with.
yeah, we've had quite a bit of material to digest over the last few months, so, I want to encourage everybody on the planning commission to dive back into that and make sure you see how it all ties together and anticipate some of the things that are coming, and then bring our questions out so that they don't all pile up at the end, because we are getting what appears to be a little more, I don't know if difficult's the right word, but a little more comprehensive with each subset that we're getting, and some of the things are going to be a little more cringeworthy, perhaps. So we don't want to pile it all on the end and just have, some kind of marathon where we're ordering breakfast before we leave. So it would be great if we get some of those, the earlier things addressed earlier, if at all possible. Mr. Murphy's a great resource for us, and he's always got great answers, so we appreciate that. So bring him early.
Thank you.
Can. Great, okay. Any more specific questions for Mr. Murphy on that, or anyone else from the city? Okay, looks like we'll move right along into, do we have any planning commission discussion about any particular items that we see forthcoming or need to add to an agenda or plan for?
I do.
Okay,
In terms of as the one person was talking about the C4, where is that? I mean, is that going to be coming back to us since the Board of Commissioners kind of rejected it, I believe? So is it going to be coming back to us and then back to them?
It'll be going to a BOC workshop. Linda, I don't know if you have any other input, if they would
Right.
like to,
The-
if planning
The
commission. would
Board
like
of
to talk about it.
Commissioners, the Board of Commissioners referred it to a workshop. They didn't reject the item or deny it at this point. They haven't voted on it officially. So this is part of their hearing process. They're adding on hearing opportunities by putting it on workshops so they could talk about it in more detail.
okay, do we know the date of that workshop?
No, it's not scheduled yet.
Okay.
But we can let you know when that workshop is.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's one Mr. Rostick's going to be most interested in. All right, so our next meeting is going to be November 28th. Same place, same time, 6 PM.
Do we have to vote on that?
We already did, didn't we?
You were here, we did that.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you did.
Thought we did. All right. So then our next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 5th at 6 PM as well. So we're gonna go back to back. And I probably should have checked my calendar before I agreed to that, but okay. So we'll be there. All right. So any other information we need to get? Make sure you get one of these before you leave that was distributed to us. And if there's nothing further, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I've got